Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the fourth annual Future Librarians Day. We're really excited to have all of you joining us. Um, Without further ado, I'm going to just get it going because we only have 45 minutes per panel. This is the Collections and Archives panel, and Keith will be our moderator. So, Keith, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. Good morning, everybody. So as Amanda said, welcome to the fourth annual Future Librarians Day. We're happy to have you all here. Just to get us started, we're just going to do a quick round of introductions so everyone can know who we are. My name is Keith Pardini. I work on Long Island at Suffolk County Community College. I'm a reference and instruction librarian, but working in the academic library world, we get this more fancy, cool title. So I'm an assistant professor of library services. I oversee the reference department, teach information literacy, different classes, work on collection development. I'm also a library liaison to many different academic departments. I oversee the library displays, and in my spare time, I do help assist the digital archive that our college is trying to grow. So I've been working in libraries for about 10 years. This is a second career for me, career change. And I've been working in my current role for about 5 years. So now I'll ask the others to introduce themselves. If you could just tell us your name, your title, the institution that you work at, and some of just your primary responsibilities, and how long you've been a librarian, how long you've been in your current role. So just going around my screen, looks like Kelly, you're first.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelly Barbado, and I'm currently the head of research and instruction services at SUNY Brockport, just outside of Rochester, New York. I have been a librarian for 10 years, um, and I've been in my role at SUNY Brockport for just about a year and a half here. I started in January of 2024. I've lived all over the East Coast in service of my career in librarianship. My current role involves overseeing research and instruction services, but also serving as a liaison librarian to certain areas in the curriculum as well. And that's been a part of all of the work I've done in every role I've had. So can definitely speak to that this morning. So it's good to be with you all.
Okay, thank you. Pam?
Yes, I'm Pam Chaya. I'm the Web Services Librarian at Monroe Community College in Rochester, New York. I'm also the library liaison to the School of Health Sciences and Physical Wellness. That's the largest number of degree programs at MCC reside in that school. So I do collection development for all the health, allied health sciences, nursing, dental, health physical education. I also manage the library website, the portal presence. I'm also LibGuides administrator. And also have access to all the electronic resources, the databases for the library. I've been at MCC since August 2001, originally hired as a reference distance learning librarian. And then due to staff changes, I evolved into taking over this role. So a lot of different experience in a lot of different areas. I'm currently a full professor. We have rank, academic rank, but I also, we're actually professional staff, but with rank. So that allows us to go for promotion. Um, so I look forward to answering any questions you have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jane?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jane Verostek, and I'm a librarian at the SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, which I always tell everybody it's right next to Syracuse University, next to the dome, because we're kind of overshadowed by them, and we do work closely with them. So my title is librarian, which is very generic. I oversee archives and special collections. I also teach our credit-bearing information literacy course, oversee displays and exhibits, work at the reference desk, and later on when we talk about promotion and tenure, there's a lot of other things involved with academic librarians. So I sit on a lot of committees and work with a lot of faculty and students. And I've been there for 27 years, and I worked in libraries for 35 years. Didn't think I'd be where I am for 27 years. That always happens that way, right? But my job has evolved, and I'll talk about that when we get further on into questions.
Cool. Thank you. Jennifer?
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Embry. I am a subject librarian at Binghamton University. I cover a lot of different subjects. So I cover biology, psychology, Latin American and Caribbean area studies, translation research, and comparative literature. And I'm also the Sustainability Hub coordinator at Binghamton. So I co-founded the Sustainability Hub, and I do a lot of engagement around sustainability and event planning. My primary responsibilities as a subject librarian are to do a lot of collection work, but I also do a ton of engagement work with a lot of my different departments. I do a lot of events. I do a lot of consultations and instruction for my different subject areas. So that's primarily what I do. I have been a librarian here for almost 7 years now. This is my first position outside of library school. Before that, I worked in a public library as a children's librarian for a couple of years. So it's good to be here.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So some of us have some more fancy titles, some are just very simple. So let's just talk about what an ideal day looks like. So I know each day is unique and different priorities sometimes just come up suddenly. But maybe when you took the job or now that you're, in that role for a while, what would a typical day look like for you? Or what would you hope a typical day would look like for you? So Kelly, we could start with you again.
Sure. Well, I'm still new-ish in my role, so I'm kind of still figuring that out because we all know it takes a little bit of time. But I know one of the first things I do in the morning is I take a look at our LibAnswers system and see what tickets are hanging out in there, making sure things get assigned. LibAnswers at Brockport we use to as a ticketing system to help patrons with various things. And we have a queue in there for research services and for instruction requests. So a lot of times I have been trying to do some more instruction since I'm newish to Brockport and trying to meet and establish relationships with faculty. So I look and see if I can teach something and then reach out to the faculty, or if I can't because it doesn't fit with my schedule, I talk to one of my colleagues about whether they can teach it. Um, I also take a look at our lib staffer calendar because we still staff a physical reference desk at the Drake Library at Brockport. So I want to make sure that if anybody's sick, their shifts have been given up and I can try to get their shifts covered on the reference desk. So that's like kind of first thing in the morning. And then of course there's email, but throughout the day, I'm doing kind of a variety of things. I'm thinking about what upcoming classes I'm teaching, whether it's for one of my liaison areas. So this past Monday, I actually taught 2 business communication classes, and that was a new experience for me. I actually had a business faculty reach out to me to request instruction, which business faculty are notoriously kind of like, I have found either kind of like really for the library or like not at all wanting anything to do with the library. So I was really encouraged to get that email from that faculty member. So planning for a class, or since I'm head of research and instruction services, zooming out and thinking about larger themes with our instruction program at Brockport, especially with the recent updates to the information literacy student learning outcomes from SUNY to involve, that AI terminology. But generally, I'm trying these days to try and be more intentional about my liaison work. I've spent a lot of time the past year and a half getting to know the librarians on my team, getting to know the wider library team, getting to know people across campus. And my liaison work has kind of been a little bit on the back burner because I've had so many other new things to work on. So I'm the liaison to School of Business and Management, Political Science and International Relations. I am the liaison to the Honors College. We just kind of adjusted some things because we had a new librarian start. So just trying to build relationships. So every day truly does look different, but I kind of have a combination of doing librarian things and doing administrator things every day. And for me, I really enjoy that mix of things in terms of being a department head. And this is kind of like the dream job that I didn't know was the dream job. So right now all of y'all are thinking about the next steps in your career. Your dream job might not be that far off. So just be encouraged and yeah, so I think that'll sum it up.
Thank you, Kelly. Great points there. Pam.
Oh, first thing I can say that every day is different. So we currently work, we have a remote schedule. So there's days that I'm physically on campus, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then I have my remote days at home, which is Tuesday and Thursday. So my schedule kind of varies based on, what I'm doing, the location where I'm working, right? So when I'm on campus, the average day will be like serving on the research desk to assist students with any questions they may have. We run an on-call model here, so we're not physically actually at the desk all the time. A lot of times we're in our office working, and then if there's a question, we come down or call down. We can also just stay, work there at our assigned shift if we want to. There's different meetings that we have. We're currently in the middle of a LibGuides redesign project. So I'm the administrator overseeing that. So we just did an audit and assessment of all of our guides, trying to figure out which ones we want to combine, merge, delete. We're going to decide on a template for subject guides to redesign that. So that's a big project. Of course, I have the e-resources duty, so I'm always checking the listservs to see what messages come through, or SUNY Basecamp to see what changes I need to make, either on Easy Proxy Stanza for off-campus access, or about any new developments with the Primo, the discovery tool. So that falls under my responsibilities as well, managing that. And then I have collection development work in my liaison area. And we recently had a retirement in January. So now we're going to be actually working on that more intently as the liaisons, because there's no one there really to guide us anymore for direction, for special, for titles to order and things. So we're taking more and more of that on our own. So that'll be an important learning opportunity. So hopefully more connection with faculty in the areas that I serve as liaison to. So on days that I work remotely, a lot of the work is done looking at data, looking at doing the webinars to stay up to date with developments in my field, and then how I can that can affect my work currently and moving forward. It's a more quieter time than being on campus, when you work at home. So that's just a little insight to my work.
Great. Thank you, Pam. Jane, can you go next?
I have to reiterate, every day is different, as Pam and Kelly said. And also, we also use LibAnswers. And I just want to point that out again because LibAnswers is key. It's where all of our questions come in too. So like for me, all of the archives and special collections questions are filtered to me. So that's the big thing is checking my email and checking LibAnswers to see if there's a researcher or a student or faculty that needs some help with our archives and special. But I was just thinking about like this week, every day is different, especially for us. It was Earth Week this week. So um, sometimes what you want your day to be like isn't what it turns out to be. A reference question could derail you. A researcher could need to come in. I'm working with a student who's writing their PhD right now, and they're using our archives in special. So I could end up spending the day with them. Typically, I would like a day to be where I'm answering my emails and getting back to researchers and students, doing some grading for my class. If it's a day that I'm teaching, I am mostly focused on preparing and getting to my class, and being there for my students because oftentimes, even after class, students stay after and need extra help. You've also got interjected committee work that you have to do. We all have to attend our academic governance meetings. And then if you're on committees for promotion and tenure, you've got to fit those in. Also, something really unusual for me is our library administration moved our archives and special collections off campus. So about 95% of my collection that I work with is off-site. So I had a faculty come in yesterday. He needs to use our mycology items. Um, so we need to schedule a day where I need to meet him at the off-site storage facility. I also write a lot of grants, so I have to figure out my schedule. So if I've got a due date for a grant, I need to fit that in. So a day may be just focusing and writing a grant. So every day is very different. I'm a big planner. I keep a couple calendars. It's really important to stay organized. Many librarians now have multiple responsibilities. It's not just your reference librarian. We have our physical reference desk. We all teach. We all have specialties. And you've really got to be adaptable and organized because every day like I said, one question can just completely change how your day flows.
Thank you, Jane. Great points. And as Pam mentioned, losing staff, we're all asked to do more with less. So yeah, continuing evolving and just different things that we're doing all the time. Jennifer, your turn.
Yeah, so I can kind of take you through my day to day because it's kind of one of my ideal days. So I'm doing this in the morning. But as people had mentioned already, April is really big for Earth Month and events like that. So we have an Earth Day festival on campus today that I'm going to be tabling at. And then my LACAS program, which is the Latin American program that I am a liaison for, is having their program meeting today that I'm a member of. So I go to that. We're going to vote on bylaws. We're going to talk about their external review results that they got for their program with the Dean of Harper. So I basically I do some collection development, like people have already mentioned, but a lot of what I do is a lot of engagement. So I meet with faculty members about questions they have, but I also meet with a lot of students about questions they have related to research and library resources. I do a lot of event planning and hosting and engagement. So the Sustainability Hub, we do a lot of different types of events all year round, but I also work with our outreach people a lot to do other types of events. So like we just did a zine workshop last week that was part of a research scholars program we have at Binghamton. That was really fun that a student that I'm mentoring with someone else ran. And so there's all sorts of different ways to kind of get involved. I think what's really nice about being a subject librarian is that you can kind of make your own job based around what your department's needs are and what they're interested in. So like I've done things like I've helped them plan film festivals and have run film discussions with them. I do a lot of information literacy teaching and a variety of other things. The other thing that I do frequently and I really enjoy is research. So a lot of SUNY schools have tenure track programs for librarians, and you are expected to do research and publish. And it's something I really enjoy doing. So I like to carve out time to do that on a regular basis so that I can do research and publish on the work that I'm doing, but also some of my own personal and professional interests. So that's something that if you're interested in working at a SUNY school, is probably something that you would do a little bit of. So I wanted to mention that as well. But that's generally like my typical day. It's different every day, as everyone has said. So it really is kind of it's nice in that way where there's a lot of variety.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I'd like you all to think about when you kind of first got started, and basically how did you break into the profession, or how did you break into the particular specialization that you're doing now? Jennifer, you mentioned you used to be a children's librarian. So did you all gain experience working at other libraries, or did you kind of learn the skills on the job? Did you follow a certain academic track? If you could just kind of talk about how you got started and how you're in the role that you are now. So Kelly?
Ooh, it's been a long road for me. I went to UB for library school, and I actually had a graduate assistantship in the music library for a year while I was there. So I got some real relevant experience while in library school, which was really helpful. But I graduated from with my MLS in 2011, and the market was very, very saturated in Rochester, with graduates from UB, graduates from Syracuse, and not a lot of movement in Rochester area libraries. So, and I was also in a different place in my personal life at the time and kind of tied to Rochester. So I actually didn't get my first full-time library job until 2014, and I actually moved to get it. And it was just a library assistant job in the music library at the University of Memphis in Tennessee. And I really, really loved that job. And it didn't take very long for me to then get my first librarian job back in Rochester at a private institution. And from that point, that was fall of 2015, up until I came to Brockport, I was actually at a bunch of different private institutions, with hopes that I could eventually get back to SUNY or to a larger private institution with a little bit more stability, because a lot of the smaller liberal arts type colleges or faith-based colleges are really struggling right now. So I know I'm personally really grateful to be at SUNY. Brockport's the biggest university I've worked at. We have an enrollment currently of about 7,700, and we're considered one of the SUNY comprehensive institutions. And I will say that something I've noticed about academic librarianship is that unless you're at an R1, and sometimes even if you are at an R1, you are going to have a lot of different pieces that comprise your work in librarianship. You're most likely not just going to be an archivist or not just going to be a liaison librarian, unless you're at like a big, big university with a very robust library team. So that's something to start thinking about now, and be aware of now. So what have I done? I was an outreach librarian in my first role. I was an access services librarian in my second role. And then I actually had 2 library directorships at smaller universities before I ended up at Brockport. And you might be wondering, what the heck are you doing going into head of research and instruction services after being a library director? And I kind of viewed that move as a step up, even though I was a director, because again, it's a larger institution, it's a larger library team, and I'm actually making the most money that I've ever made in this role, despite having been a library director before, because of the size of the institution, because of being represented by a union in SUNY, and because of being tenure track. So those are some of the benefits of working in the SUNY system if you can get a job in the SUNY system. So it's been a really wonderful journey, and I've learned so much throughout. And I will say I learned everything on the job. I mean, library school gives you a really good foundation upon which to build, but you really do kind of learn once you get your first job. So don't be afraid to put in a lot of applications, even if you're not 100% qualified for the role you're looking at. Like, it's better to try and see if you get a call than it is to wonder if they would have called you. So please, please, please apply widely. Be confident in what you've learned, and apply all over the place. Like, take a chance. So yeah, it's been an adventure, but it's been really wonderful. And like I said, I'm feeling really great about having my first tenure track role here at Brockport, and really, really thrilled to be a SUNY librarian. And I do want to plug, we have a couple of openings. I have someone retiring at the end of May, who actually is our archives and special collections librarian, among other things. So if you're looking for a job, please keep your eyes open for that. And if you have any questions, I'll drop my email in the chat and you can email me. But so I had to plug that really quickly while I had this platform with a bunch of new librarians. But I think that answered the question.
That was great, very appropriate too. Pam.
Oh, my road is a very long road as well. My bachelor's degree is actually in clinical laboratory science, medical laboratory technology. So I actually worked in research at the University at Buffalo on the South Campus and the Department of Oral Biology, a dental area. And when I was an undergraduate at Damon College, I worked in the library and work study. So, of course, that's where the first love of the field came. and just working with the graduate students in the lab and doing the research that supports the journal articles that are published. So it all kind of connected together. And I went to library school part-time at night, worked full-time in the lab. And that was grant funding, so that ended before I finished my library degree. So a very long transition. I couldn't relocate. So I graduated in 1993, and I did apply out of town and had a lot of different interviews, but due to illness with my parents, I just couldn't move. So I actually didn't get this job in Rochester until August 2001. That's my first professional position. And in between that time, those 7 years, just working part-time, library and non-library jobs, sometimes up to 3 different jobs, at the same time, 2 part-time library. I was able to get rehired back at UB on a grant. So a lot of hours and a lot of time. So this was the first position. I drive. I don't live in Rochester. I'm driving from Buffalo. For many years, 5 days a week. And I was hired as a distance learning librarian. And I wanted to be a health sciences librarian because of my background and working in research and the bachelor's degree in medical technology. But I found that, you have to be curious and open to accept whatever is out there and the interest. I think if you demonstrate those things, that's how you evolve as a person, right? And then the field evolves and you just roll with it and just try to keep moving forward. That's the most important thing that I've learned along the way. And then there were different role changes here. People had left, and then I just took on that responsibility for e-resources and managing the website and guides. And I'm just learning every day. I'm older now. I'm in my early 60s, but I just have that drive to keep moving forward and learning and making things better for students and faculty. So I think if you can retain that throughout your career, you'll go very far, and that'll help you to be active and involved and interested in what you're doing. It really is a wonderful, wonderful field to be in, and to help other people find information and evaluate. So I think I covered everything. I'm still so enthused after all these years to be doing this, and the possibilities, are endless. So good luck to all of you in your quest to get a library position.
Thank you, Pam. Jane?
I also have a long, winding road. So I was one of those people that worked at my community library when I was a teenager, and it was a really wonderful experience because it was truly just a small town public library. I'm still friends 35 years later with the people I worked with. Um, and it just set into motion where I would end up. I worked at the Syracuse University Law Library, which was an interesting experience. I did collection development there, purchasing materials for the law faculty. And then from there, I went to Syracuse University to get my master's of library science degree while I was there. And when I re got the degree, I was like, oh, it's time to, become a professional. And at the time, that was in the 90s, I couldn't find a traditional librarian position, so I worked for a vendor, which they've gotten bought out a number of times. It was originally Gaylord Brothers. And it wasn't something I expected to be doing, but I look back on it and I almost wish I had stayed there longer. I was one of the librarians that got to travel all around the United States teaching libraries how to use their new systems. So that was back when we were getting card catalogs in the mail and we were digitizing and putting in the records and then we would send librarians to a library anywhere in the United States for a week to a week and a half to train them on how to use everything, acquisitions, cataloging, the public catalog. And that was a really intensive time of learning. You're in Arizona and you've got to figure out how to solve problems on the spot and teach librarians you've never met. And that has really, I look back on that many times when I'm having a tough day teaching. It's nothing like, you know, being somewhere remote. I can go back to my office or a student can come back with me and I can help them. So after my stint with a vendor, which it's funny now when vendors come to talk, I I I know what's on the other side. So it was very helpful working for a vendor. I came to Moon Library, SUNY ESF, but I ended up working part-time as a consultant with Gaylord Brothers after I left. They had me be a person that tested their new systems. So you never know the connections that you make along the way. Because I also want to mention that because during my time that I was getting my master's of library science, I did an internship at a different public library. And when I got my job, my full-time job now, my old supervisor for my internship said, "Hey, we have a job opening. Would you like to come and work?" So it ended up I worked full-time where I am now, and I worked nights and weekends at a different public library. I did that for 6 years. But that was very helpful because it was a very, very large public library. It was our main public library. And I would go in and they would put me on any floor. So I could be on the children's desk. I could be at the main information desk where people walked in. And the key for me was they put me in local history genealogy, which is what set another path for me. So I think being open to trying new things, telling them, because not a lot of librarians that work there would say, put me on any desk. But I was like, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to have this job. Just put me wherever you need me. And then even after I left, I would be a sub. So if they needed help on a weekend or if someone was taking a leave or vacation. So always keep in mind those connections that you're making when you're doing your internships. Be very thoughtful when you're doing your internship, and if possible, if you can do more than one, because that's where you're making key connections, I think. You never know when you're going to get a call or an email saying, "Hey, we have a position open. We really like the work you did here where you were an intern." And you just never know where those paths are going to take you. It's and I've this is like really weird because I've always had two library jobs at the same time, so it's unusual for me just to have one. But I think Pam was saying she worked more than one job. It's not unusual to. I also somewhere in there, I was an indexer and abstract for the ERIC database, which was really nice because I could do that from home at my leisure, and I made some great connections. And I also learned about how databases work behind the scenes. So keeping an open mind, because you never know where the path is going to take you and the people that you meet are going to help you.
Great. Thank you, Jean. Jennifer?
Yeah, so I don't have as much experience or background, but I do. When I first graduated from undergrad, I had BAs in psychology and English, and I thought I was going to be like, a Teach for America type teacher, and I joined a program and I absolutely hated it. It was completely different than what I was expecting in terms of like the educational, I guess, like freedom that you would have in a program like that. And so, pretty soon after I graduated, I got a job working full time at a public library as a children's librarian. I did not have a degree. It was a position that did not require a master's degree. Um, but that's kind of where I learned about like all of the possibilities of working in a library setting, and what was available and what library school was. So after I worked there for 2 years, I went back to school. I went to UNC, and while I was there, like a lot of people have already said, I tried my best to get as much experience as I could, but I also had to be practical, right? So, like, I think a lot of people go to library school online and they're probably working full-time jobs that might not be related to libraries at all. Now I think that's fairly common. For me, like, I took the jobs that were going to pay the most of my tuition while I was there. So, I worked at the EPA, a library for the EPA that was contracted out, which was really an interesting experience. I really enjoyed that. So that was like a special library situation. And then my second year there, I just worked in the writing center on campus, which was not related to libraries, but I still think it's probably one of the most valuable experiences that I've ever had to prepare me to be a subject librarian. They had such great professional development, and the one-on-one interactions were so beneficial to kind of have that experience going into being a subject librarian where I do so much consultation work. And it taught me how to talk to students and to faculty and to really get to like the questions that they're actually asking and helping them in a way that is supportive. So I say, and then after I graduated, I got the job at Binghamton. It was originally posted as a psychology and biology librarian. All of these subject areas I do were not put together in the job ad. As we've already talked about, kind of like accumulated more subject areas as I've been here because of retirements and promotions and things like that of other folks. But I love doing all of my subject areas so much. But what I will say is like with this type of when you're job searching and things like that, like I totally agree, like being open and being opportunistic and looking for those opportunities is so important. And finding experience anywhere that you can. I will say that when people are looking at, job um, applications, like if you have some experience in a library, it's going to go a long way. And so if you are someone that is, getting this degree and you're working a full-time job that's not related to libraries, like really try to find some opportunities to be able to build experience in library settings because it will help so much when you do start trying to find a job in a library setting. And knowing how to kind of like talk about your skills in a transferable way, right? Like I really do believe that working at the writing center was the thing that prepared me the most, even outside of my classes, outside of the other library jobs I had for the job I have now. And I talked a lot about that in my job interview because of all the skills that I learned through that position. So if you're able in your cover letters and like your resumes and stuff to talk about the jobs that you have that aren't related to libraries, but really highlight how those skills are going to help you in your current job, that will also make you stand out a lot too. So I just want to kind of mention that depending on what your experience is, like it can be hard sometimes to find a job, like if you're trying to transfer into this field from something else.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you all for sharing your unique experiences. I think the one commonality that we're seeing is just get experience. It might not be exactly what you think it's going to be, but there's a reason that you're there for that job. It's going to help you down the line to whether it's just networking or whether it's just to share experiences in an interview. Yeah, thank you so much. So we all work as librarians in some way in an academic library setting. But we also have additional responsibilities, right? Working in a university or a college. So can you all just quickly talk about some of the things you do outside of the library, like committee work, researching, publishing? And is that required? I know a lot of times students, I know when I was a student, I was wondering like how much research do I have to do? So can you speak about like, do you have to do research? Is it optional or is it just part of the promotion? So just speak about some of the outside work you do. Outside the library, like committee work and scholarly research. Kelly.
All right. So at Brockport, I am on the Provost Research Council, which is a group of faculty trying to find ways to better support faculty across the institution in their research efforts. I am also the library's representative to the University Senate, and I serve as the Senate representative on the campus-wide sustainability committee. Let's see, outside of Brockport, I do a lot of service activities. In core, I am on the editorial board of Library Leadership and Management, and I'm actually working on co-editing a special issue on middle management in academic libraries. So that's been a really good learning experience for me. I'm also active in a kind of small niche group called the Association of Christian Librarians, and that's been really fulfilling for me over the years. I've presented many times at their conference. I've been coordinator of their mentoring program. I'm currently co-convener of their information literacy interest group. Um, let's see. In SUNYLA, I'm actually running for second VP because Brockport's hoping to host the SUNYLA conference next year. So just a quick plug for 2026 at Brockport. Come to SUNYLA next year. Come to SUNYLA this year at Delhi. Last year was my first one and I had such a good time. SUNY librarians are awesome to hang out with and learn from. So please come to SUNYLA at Delhi this year. In terms of tenure and promotion, our library kind of looks at the person's whole package. So, what I mean by that is I've not actually published anything peer-reviewed, but I was appointed at full librarian rank when I came to Brockport, because I've done a lot of service, and a lot of presentations and poster type things. So, they kind of try to look at you in context and in terms of what you've done, what your gifts and abilities are, and kind of how that shapes you as an entire information professional. I am grateful for that perspective because because of the types of roles I've had where I've had to wear many, many hats, it's been hard for me to just sit down and focus on trying to do hardcore research. So that's something that I'm hoping to have more time to do at Brockport once I feel like fully settled in and kind of knowing what's going on, doing a study and, actually publishing something peer reviewed. So I feel really lucky that Brockport takes this, stance of looking at the whole person and that my tenure and promotion packets begin with a committee of librarians, then goes to the director, then goes to the provost, and everything's kind of considered really truly within the context of librarianship. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's my summary of that.
Thank you, Kelly. Pam?
Yes, one of the items on our evaluation instrument is service to college community and students. So we don't have like research and publishing here at the community college level at MCC, but there's emphasis on service. So like over the years, when I was in the distance learning librarian role, I was on the committee for learning resources, which supported the virtual campus as a librarian supporting online students. Then I've also served on the MCC College Wellness Council. So that's promoting goodwill and health and joy and all the benefits of that to the college community. I also served on the College Sustainability Committee. Internally, we have the Staff Appreciation Committee, which we just named the Woohoo Crew. So to promote good things among us staff here in the library, positive feelings and just recognizing people, and also our student workers are part of that recognition on that committee. I also am on the library web team. I manage that committee, serve as the lead, and on the library retention, tenure, and promotion committee. So once you get tenure here, it's a 5-year process. You automatically become a member of that committee, and then you evaluate other librarians. We all serve, in that role once you get tenure. And then I was also invited to be on the SUNY Chancellor's Award Committee, having been a recipient of that award for my campus in librarianship. So those are just some things that I've done. Publishing, like I said, and research are not required here. If you have an interest in doing that, then by all means you can. I just never have, because the majority of my work here for evaluation has been on the professional development, the service, and what you do and the primary job responsibilities. Those are really the three elements and how we're evaluated here.
Thank you, Pam. Jane?
So, I was trying to find a nice way to describe how I've gone through promotion and tenure and what I've had to do, but there really isn't an easy way to say it other than I'm my fifth library director
Uh,
in the time that I've been at my college. And um, the promotion and tenure guidelines, when I were hired, were completely revised by a library director while I was trying to reach tenure. And now I have a new library director, and we've just hired two new librarians, and he's revising them again. But when I was going for promotion and tenure and going through the whole, because it is a process. It isn't like you're just looking at that 1 year. You're looking at all the years of experience you've had. So you need to be very cognizant of what you're doing and keeping good records and being active. So when I was doing my promotion and tenure, all the years leading up to it, a lot of my focus, mostly because the director at that time, their focus was being involved in like NYLA. So I joined NYLA. I had a small part in the academic and special library section, and I worked my way up to being president. We all areas of New York have regional library councils. I started small on a small committee, worked my way up to be the president of their board. I also had to publish in peer-reviewed articles, and the director at the time that I was getting promotion and tenure required a second master's. So I pursued a second master's in museum studies. I haven't seen a draft of the new promotion and tenure guidelines for our new incoming librarians. I have a feeling it's not going to be as rigid as they have been in the past. So I mean, it's really hard because giving advice to librarians coming into the field of academia is really being aware of the existing promotion and tenure guidelines and having open conversations with colleagues and your library director about what's expected of you, because you need to stay on track. And a lot of it comes down to what the library director is really looking for. Other people mentioned, they're looking at the whole package of you, but each library director, from what I've learned, has a different vision of what they see as what you should be involved in. I made it through. It was hard because at the time, getting a second master's degree, publishing in peer-reviewed journals, being involved in all these committees, teaching, it was a lot of work. And I made it through to the other side. But again, you need to be aware of what's expected of you. I have known people that have not received tenure, because they they weren't keeping up on their professional responsibilities in or outside the library. It does happen. It is rare, but it can happen. So I would always say just be aware of what the current guidelines are, making sure that you're active in what you should be active in. Our promotion and tenure guidelines have a certain percentage that we have to be involved in for certain things. And so being aware of what those percentages are that you have to meet. And again, being aware that those guidelines could be revised for better or worse.
Thank you, Jane. Jennifer?
Yeah, so at Binghamton, which is an R1 institution, it's a fairly big research-heavy school. There has been a more of an emphasis moving the librarian faculty also to do more research. So the tenure process here, basically it works in two parts. So you're hired on a 3-year contract, and then you have this 3-year review. So basically, once 3 years come around, you are expected to kind of present everything that you have done in those past 3 years, and you're evaluated on three different things. It's your job performance, so what is in your job description, and how you've been doing those things. Scholarship. So we define scholarship as both research that you have published, but also like conferences and conference presentations, conference posters, that type of thing. And then service, which is the committee work, as well as like, other types of things. Like if you are helping to peer review articles for a journal, if you are helping to like run conferences, like anything that can be considered service type work. And so those are the three things that you were evaluated on. So you have that at your 3-year review, and then you have a 6-year review, which happens 3 year. If you pass your 3-year review, you get an extended contract for another 3 years, and that's when you go up for tenure. And you have to kind of look back at your whole 6 years. The research component of our process, you basically have to publish one like reviewed article or publication, but the expectation is to kind of move that needle further along. So to have, a couple of different publications. And then if you get tenure, you have the option to go up for full librarian after that. And the expectation is to have continued to have like a sustained publishing career or sustained research. So, there is an expectation of it, and I do think it is becoming more like the whole campus as a whole is moving towards trying to push their research agenda, like their research, I guess, like presence nationally. And so we're feeling that in the library as well. So that expectation is there for sure. But we do have a lot of support for tenure here in some ways. So we have like a mentorship program. So if you are hired, you are given a new mentor that helps kind of walk you through the tenure process, helps you with some of your research needs and things like that to give you some advice. And we have other types of like support as well. So that's generally how it works here. It's really different in a lot of different places, and the expectations are really different. So you do have to double check. I will say here, what you're hired under, like the criteria that you were hired under is what you will be evaluated on when you go up for tenure. So that doesn't like even if it's changed because it has changed here many times as well, what you're hired under is what they're supposed to evaluate you on, even if it changes while you're here. So that helps a little bit. That was a really like I just learned that I went through the tenure process like a year ago, but I just learned that that was our policy on campus like in the past year. So I'll just highlight that here because I think that's really happy, like a good thing to know when you're hired because it can be really unnerving when the criteria is changing. Like when I first started is when they just made the research requirement. Before that, you didn't have to do research to get tenure at all. So things change really quickly with some of those things.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at the time and we are just flying. We actually kind of have to wrap it up now. It's 9:52. Amanda asked that we set up for the next panel soon. But just want to thank Kelly, Pam, Jane, and Jennifer for sharing. I really hope all the participants got a lot out of their unique experiences and how they got started. And I really hope that this was helpful. If you all have follow-up questions for our panelists, please stay on, but especially come back at 12 o'clock where we're going to have a breakout lunch as well. So just thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Keith, for moderating.
All right, welcome back for our second session of Future Librarians Day 2025. We're really excited to be doing this for the fourth time. I'm Amanda Lau, I'm an Outreach and Marketing Librarian here at UAlbany, and I'll be moderating today's panel. So I'm just going to go across my screen and we're going to introduce everybody here. Tell me who you are, what you do, and where you're doing it at. And if anyone doesn't know where they are, this is currently the Public Services panel. So Claire, we'll start with you.
Hi, I'm Claire Ehrlich. I'm the Reference and Instruction Librarian at Mohawk Valley Community College, which is in Utica. And my job is I spend a lot of time, I oversee the reference desk, and we also provide virtual reference through chat. So I oversee all of that. And also I do a fair amount of our instruction as well, since we're a pretty small staff. So I teach on average 2 classes a week, but it's really front loaded to the first half of the semester. And then it peters off gradually from there.
All right, Mary Jo.
Morning all. My name is Mary Jo Orzik. I'm the Scholarly Communications Librarian here at SUNY Brockport. I'm part of the research and instruction team, and that means we do get to wear a lot of hats to do quite a few things. So I serve on the reference desk. I'm a library liaison for biology, chemistry, physics, and math. I am a full-time tenured librarian. I've been here for about 8 years in my current position, and before that, I was the director of the library. But I've seen a lot of changes, and currently, as a scholarly communications librarian, I'm supporting a lot of open access, open educational resources, open pedagogy efforts on our campus. I also help out in the archives and do a number of other things as needed.
Right, Haley.
Hi, I'm Haley Kearns. I'm here from Binghamton University. I'm a digital scholarship librarian for data science and STEM. So we have a digital scholarship team. So we do a lot of the similar things, but I have my own focus. So basically, if you're unfamiliar with digital scholarship, um, it covers a wide range of digital tools and practices, but my job is very similar to other instruction and outreach, except I focus on the digital. So I do workshops, I go into classes and teach classes, I host events, and I do like consultations for specific digital projects. I tend to focus on projects related to data analysis, data visualization, data management planning, all of those great things. So basically, I support research and teaching for digital tools and approaches.
Kelsey.
Hey everybody, so I'm Kelsey O'Brien. I'm an information literacy librarian. So I'm at SUNY Albany with Amanda, and I do a lot of instruction. I teach classes, course-related sessions, also develop instructional materials, tutorials, guides, all sorts of things. I'm also the liaison for the Writing and Critical Inquiry program at SUNY Albany. So that is a required course for incoming students. So I primarily work with first-year students, helping them transition from high school to college research. I work with the WCI faculty a lot and try to do some outreach with them as well. And I also have reference responsibilities. So I mostly virtually assist students and faculty with their research questions.
And Tawanda.
Good morning. I'm at Westchester Community College. I am the library department chair. Aside from the various administrative responsibilities, I also provide traditional library services, reference in person virtually. I also teach information literacy classes, oversee the periodicals collection. I'm also a liaison to various departments on campus and currently developing our makerspace.
So a lot of different hats on this panel. So the question that I like starting with is kind of asking everyone what your day-to-day looks like. And I know that this can vary, as our first panel said, it's usually different day to day. But what does it kind of look like? And what about your day brings you the most joy? So we'll start with Tawanda.
My day-to-day entails making sure the circulation department is up and running. Our front end services are ready to go because everything else in the background, no one has to know about it. So making sure those front end services are up and running. As in an administrative capacity, just making sure that departmental goals and operations are being met. But I forgot to mention that I also oversee circulation. So making sure that our staffing is ready and just really trying to always be forward thinking. So every day I have a goal of what's the next thing that we can do. So that's my day to day.
Kelsey.
Yeah, so it can definitely vary. That's one of the things I really love about my job is that every day is a little different. It also depends on the time of year. Usually, kind of right after the beginning of the fall semester is super busy for me when instructors are starting to request some assistance with teaching their classes, their students getting ready for research. So it ebbs and flows for sure. But usually there's a mix of scheduled meetings or instruction or reference shifts. And then usually, hopefully, I have some free time in between that I can kind of choose what I want to work on. That's another thing I love about my job is I always have a few different projects going on. They might be related to research or committee work, or maybe some sort of instructional idea that I have after going to a conference. So it kind of, from day to day, of course, there are deadlines, but I can kind of think about what I feel like working on that day. I have a grant that I'm working on right now that's a lot of fun. So I always enjoy kind of at least giving myself some blocked off time to work on the things that really matter to me, and then obviously keeping up with the deadlines that everyone has for committee work and things like that.
Haley.
Yeah, so it definitely changes throughout the semester. We just opened a digital scholarship center, like a huge space. So that's right by my office. So I definitely go in there and hang out a lot. That's where I teach and things like that. But day to day, yeah, I have workshops and classes scheduled throughout the semester. Um, and I have consultations that pop up all the time. One thing, we definitely are pushed to do a lot of scholarship, so I'm often like working on an article or conference presentation. And then like currently we're planning for the fall already. We have a summer institute this summer, so planning for big events like that. And then my job, I do a lot of work in the library, but I also collaborate with a lot of people across campus, which means I'm in a lot of different meetings for like data related groups and things like that. So committees, groups, and planning for that.
Thank you. Mary Jo.
I'm very calendar driven. I need to start the day by making sure I check the calendar in terms of what kind of meetings or things are coming up that I need to be um, uh, making sure that I'm prepared for. I also live and die by email, rightly or wrongly. So the point is, it is a mix of activities, some scheduled meetings, some free time. I also oversee a student, so I want to make sure that they have uh, tasks or whatever for the day set. Um, Helping out as needed. Certainly, time on the reference desk. Uh, Webinars, other meetings fill up the day quickly. I'm an advisor for a club. There's all kinds of other things going on campus that I try to take advantage of, and so and participate in my liaison areas and so on.
Thank you. And Claire.
Yeah, so I usually start my day at the reference desk. A typical day, I would have 2-ish hours working at the reference desk, greeting students as they walk in, answering any questions that they have. Our reference desk is right by a bank of computers that are available for all students to use. So there's a lot of tech questions and how does the printer work questions mixed in with the research questions. And also we're kind of like the way our building works is you kind of get like just encouraged to show up in the library. And so students show up in the library lobby actually looking for all kinds of different places in our building. So a lot of directional, like, oh, the third floor that they hid from everyone, that's around the corner and up some stairs that no one knows about. So a lot of those kinds of questions. So especially the first part of the semester, since we're a community college, there's a lot of new faces every semester. So the first part of the semester reference will be very, very busy with those kinds of questions. And then the second half of the semester, everyone figures out how the printer works, but then they have research projects coming due that they have many, many questions about. I do a fair amount of instruction, a typical week, probably 2 or 3 classes. Most of those are students who I see one time and then never again. But I do have one class that I meet with regularly throughout the semester because library instruction is a major, learning how to use the library is a major component of that class. So there are students that I get to actually see regularly and kind of get to know throughout the semester. And then a lot of meetings, I'm on a bunch of campus committees like everybody else. And then I do have some time in my office to get things done, prep for the next session, meet with students, one-on-one about things that they're working on, whatever I need to get done, trying to get that done in an hour or two in my office.
Thank you. So this is probably one of my favorite questions. I think that it kind of sums up public services as a whole, but other responsibilities or other duties as assigned, right? What other roles or tasks have you taken on that do not directly relate to your title? Were these responsibilities tangentially related to your actual job description? Did you enjoy doing them? I could tell you as an example, I cleaned a popcorn machine not once but twice this week. So things like that maybe. And we'll start over with Haley.
Sure. I would say, so I work at SUNY Binghamton now, and I also worked at SUNY Canton in the past. And one of the probably things I don't always plan for is like mentoring student workers. So like we have student workers now, and obviously getting them excited about digital scholarship and things like that. But also like talking to them about their day and problems arise for them, and you're like a trusted person on campus for them often. Um, Same thing at SUNY Canton. I've had a couple students who were really excited in libraries and like kind of nurturing those interests and helping them because some students don't really care and some do. So working with students is not something that's necessarily my job description, but it's something that pops up a lot and I really enjoy.
Thank you. Tawanda.
This is interesting because on the surface, things may seem like this is not what I signed up for, but in a way, they always do relate. And when it comes to cleaning, yes, I have dusted shelves and got the Clorox wipes and cleaned the computers, or there may be a student in the bathroom in distress, and even though security is there, they need that relatable person to kind of bring them back and debrief them. So, but at the same time, it's what we do to ensure the student's success. So whether it's dusting the shelves, no, we don't. We want the shelves to be clean so that the students can borrow the materials, or we want to help that student along who may be having a difficult time so that they can continue their studies. So again, though it may seem like other duties, they're not really other duties in the spectrum of everything that we have to do. But I do understand how other duties are official titles of other, job descriptions. Yeah.
Claire.
There's a couple of us at my library who we joke that we're the moving crew. Because we can put in a ticket and someone will come from facilities and rearrange furniture or whatever we need doing, but it won't be soon necessarily. And on a quiet Friday afternoon, there's several of us who'll be like, you know what? I bet we can put that new whiteboard together. And so a lot of furniture, our library, we did away with our print reference and bound journals section, which was a pretty significant set of stacks. And it opened up one whole half of our library, really. And so we've been doing a lot of furniture rearranging over the past 2 years to kind of make new use of that space. And so there's been a lot of like, I wonder what would happen if we did this. Let's just try dragging it over there and see what happens on Monday. And I kind of like it. It's kind of a user experience kind of a role. And also I'm just kind of like, I'm here, I might as well do it kind of a person. So
I hear you have moved many a plant and chair because of that. Mary Jo.
Oh, piggybacking on that idea, we've been for the last couple semesters doing seat surveys, walking around and seeing where people are sitting so that we can find out if we should rearrange some of the things or what kind of other seating or arrangements people want. And it's interesting where they drag the things to sometimes and where it winds up, and it may or may not have been where you have necessarily thought they would be using it. So I've been doing those kind of things. I'm very interested in space planning, those kind of issues, and how space is utilized by our students and can be most they can be most productive for small group, for large group, for individual study kinds of things. But other kinds of duties I've assigned, boy, you've got me thinking here because I also chair our Friends of the Library group, which is an interesting has been a wonderful experience in terms of bringing the community into the library more, some of our alums and so on. So outreach things related to that. So we'll be doing our award luncheon soon for students. So a lot of outreach planning, event planning kinds of things that I didn't think we'd be involved in. Special kinds of activities where we take the students out to read to first graders. Those kind of some of our scholars go out. Some of our student athletes go out and do that. The other one that's coming up tomorrow, everybody's talking about Earth Week, and so as I said, I'm the advisor for a club where we're cleaning, but we're cleaning the canal. Our library backs up to the Erie Canal, and so we're taking a group out to do some Earth Day activities related to that. So that's something completely different as well.
Thank you. Kelsey.
So I mostly think of my time on the reference desk. There's always unexpected questions, and I think a big part of it that, is not in the job description is just providing emotional support to students. And oftentimes, I spend a lot of time trying to fix the printer, helping them kind of scan their card the right way. And it's like those things technically are not my job, but I'm helping them to kind of calm down because they might have a paper that's due. Or I had a student who English was not her first language, and she was really trying to get help with like editing her paper just for grammar. And she wasn't getting a lot of help from the writing center. And I honestly just ended up taking it and looking at it on my own time and getting it back to her. So I think, is one of the great things about the job. It's one of those things where you can kind of roll your eyes and say, oh, like, this is really not my job. But it is because we're trying to support students, and sometimes that looks different than, helping them find an article. So it's one of those, like, there's always a surprise with what students are asking and how you can connect with them. But it's usually worthwhile to help in any way you can.
Absolutely. All right, this next one is kind of like a twofold. So are you required to write and publish? And are you tenure track? Is that a form of permanency? And if not, what does permanency look like? Claire, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I'm at a community college. We do have a tenure process. I actually just got my letter saying that I have our version of tenure effective September 1st. But we are not required to publish. We are graded on, professional and teaching effectiveness. So my supervisor, the library director, sits in on one of my instruction sessions every year and evaluates it. And also things like professional growth, like presenting at a conference, something like this would be something that I could put under, professional effectiveness. We're also evaluated on collegiality, so work service to the college on campus committees, working groups. I'm going to be chairing one of the work groups that's working on our campus free accreditation that's coming up in a couple of years. So a lot of things like that. And also, I'm missing one. What's the other one? Professional growth. We're graded on something else. It's just left my mind. So there's no expectation of publication, but there is a lot of expectation of demonstrating, effective, work with students, effective work with colleagues, and, growing as a professional in your role, taking on new things. If you do publish, that's fantastic, but there's no expectation of that.
Kelsey.
Yeah, so we do have a tenure process for our academic librarians. I earned my tenure in 2021. I started on the tenure track in 2016, so it was about a 5-year process from starting it to actually earning it. Similarly Specifically to Claire, we are evaluated in 3 different areas, and it's very similar to the faculty, the teaching faculty at UAlbany. So we have a teaching category, which is librarianship for librarians, scholarship, and service. Usually the main hurdle for people is the scholarship. So the expectation for us is generally 2 peer-reviewed articles. So a lot of time, working up to tenure is really making sure to get those 2 articles. Things like book chapters count as well, and like any other publications you can get in there obviously help. But that's kind of the bar. And at the service level, it's always good if you can have sort of a mix of professional, library, university service. And if you can get some leadership roles like chairing a committee, that looks really good as well. And often what they're looking for is sort of a trajectory. So they want to see that, you've accomplished some things, but you're also really planning on growing more in your career and contributing more to the research in your area. And it can look really different depending on the librarian, because we all do very different things. We all specialize in different areas, but it is kind of nice with the research aspect. You can kind of focus on what it is that you're interested in. There's not, they really give you some flexibility in what you want your focus to be, as long as you can show that you have a research agenda and you're contributing to the library field.
Thank you. Tawanda.
I was thinking about the audience and the context of these 2 questions, and I think they actually go hand in hand. Because as future librarians, you may be answering a call for a particular librarian, particular specialty, but then the tenure process also ties into all these other duties. So you may be answering a call for a instructional librarian, and no, you will not only be an instructional librarian. This whole tenure process is where all the other duties also come into play. So at our institution, we are not required to publish, but we do have a 5-year tenure track position. And within that tenure track position, you're required to show or demonstrate service to the college, service to students, and service to the department. And and whatever that looks like for you, you're given free rein to make those decisions, whether it's through committee work, whether it's through conferences and presentations. So there's flexibility in that once you hit those criterias, but I just wanted to highlight that that's where a lot of the other duties also come into play.
Thank you. Mary Jo.
We do have we do rely on the 3 traditional pillars that everyone else has already mentioned: librarianship, scholarship, and service. For our tenure track librarians, we are on 12-month librarians at this point, contracts, and the point is we do not have to publish. It's the gold standard, but there is a strong expectation for a record of continuing growth. So you, as new people coming into the profession, you really do want to keep that record of it, your annual reports on. You really do want to fill those out. Don't take them lightly, because that helps to build cumulatively towards tenure. When it comes up in 5 or 6 years, you'll have a established record that you can point to. I think that's it's easy to let that go, or to because the years will all blur together otherwise, if you don't take a minute out and to do that at the end of the year to really keep track of some kind of work log in all 3 of those kinds of areas. Our scholarship is pretty general in terms of we do recognize presentations and conferences and other kinds of things as continuing professional development, and that also does count. But of course, peer-reviewed journals, articles are certainly the gold standard.
Thank you. Haley.
Yeah, so we have the 3-year review and then a 6-year tenure process with the same 3 pillars. It's our pillars, job description is weighted the most. Then scholarship is weighted pretty heavily, and then service is kind of like extra on top a lot of times. One thing that I've experienced, so I've been in two tenure track positions, so I'm going up for I've been at Binghamton 2 years, so I'm working on my third year packet right now. And also at SUNY Canton, it was 2 years, so I did a packet for them too. And there's like the rules, but there's also like changing expectations depending on leadership. So it's good to follow the rules, but it's also I've found really helpful to understand what leaders expect because it may be a little bit different from the rules and they can't necessarily, deny you, but they can have expectations and opinions that may be different than the rules. So learning that and really communicating them when you're going through the process and beforehand too. But yeah, we are definitely being pushed more to publish than librarians at our institution have in the past. But we are definitely given support to do that, I think. And we are 12-month out as well, but definitely encouraged to like do a lot of our scholarship and research in the summer when it's slower and things like that. So although we don't get the summer off, I do feel like we have more time to kind of explore that in the summer.
Thank you. All right, the next question I have is, how do you adapt the services you provide to ensure you are effectively serving the needs of diverse populations? I'd like to add to this too that especially now since diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice is such under fire at universities by the current administration, I'm assuming all of us are really looking at how we can provide better service to diverse populations on our campuses. So we'll start with Mary Jo.
We're just talking about this at our last staff meeting. We were talking about how could we do a diversity audit to ensure our collections are representative. But in addition, of course, as we meet with our patrons every day, I think that's one of the ways that we're uh, seeking out and making sure that our programs, our programming, and our displays and the kinds of materials that we have and the ways that we are communicating are inclusive and representative and really trying to be paying attention to the multiplicity of different kinds of kind of learners that we have. We just started this semester Move Smart corner in the library, which is really to help folks who learn best by fidgeting or by having a treadmill in or some kind of exercise kinds of things that we've got some yoga mats in there and so on. So it's kind of a way to get out of the shushing librarian mode and really say we're here for everyone. What however you learn, if you have to move around a lot, if you have to take breaks or whatever, we want to make sure that we have space here for everyone.
That's really cool. I would love a treadmill desk in our in our building as well. It's awesome. Claire.
Yeah, so I, reference an instruction librarian. I spend a lot of time sitting at a desk where anyone can walk up and ask me a question. And I'm at a community college, so we have a lot of, returning adult learners. We have high school students who are taking a couple classes on campus and everybody in between. Utica is a very diverse city. We have a long history of welcoming refugees and immigrants. So there's a large English language learner population. And it just comes down to, when you're training as a reference librarian, they teach you to do a really good reference interview, and you become very skilled at start with very few, if any, assumptions about what the person already knows, what they're at, and just ask a lot of questions and see where they are and where you can take them with you while you're there. It's kind of fun knowing you never know what's going to come up and come up to the desk at any given shift. I like that part of the job. If I got the same question from the same type of student every day, I would probably not be here anymore. But because it's always something different, always meeting new people, it's really, the job stays fresh and exciting.
I agree. Tawanda.
Um, Diversity is so big, and I feel like it's almost infinite in how we can meet these various diversities. However, it starts, in my opinion, with understanding the mission and vision for your library and using that as a guide to move forward. And that entails a high level of self-reflection and assessment. How am I serving students? How am I meeting their needs? What can I do better as a librarian? But also, many libraries have liaison programs. So, really having that strong partnership with faculty on campus, because yes, we just have a mashup of students coming in, but having that direct connection to faculty to understand the specific needs of students is very important, because that also allows you to have a broader or more, I wouldn't say broader, but a more targeted assessment. So, for example, maybe it's your information literacy. How can we infuse more diversity through our information literacy program? Whether it's through collection development and our liaisons, what are the needs of those programs? So, for example, we have a social justice collection here. So, for me, it would really be meeting those diverse needs through assessments, really understanding what the needs are and using the mission statement to guide.
Thank you. Who have I not gone through yet? Haley.
So we have a pretty strong culture of that in our library and our mission statement, kind of like Tawanda mentioned. Specifically for digital scholarship, often our mission or part of our mission is to offer like these consultations and tech skills for students who haven't had access to them before or aren't seeing them in their programs and things like that. So we're trying to reach people who maybe haven't had the opportunity. And then the other thing that we tend to focus a lot on is digital accessibility. And that's like a core value in a lot of our like teaching and consultations. For example, like if we're offering support for like website building, we have a checklist that people have to go through to have their website hosted by the university like servers that make sure that it's accessible by a screen reader. Like the colors are, all the guidelines required. And we work with a couple different campus offices and collaborate on teaching that across campus as well. So that's definitely a big focus, making our work accessible to everyone.
Thank you. Kelsey.
Yeah, so a couple different things. I think Claire made a really good point with the reference interview. And I think it's something I try to do with students in classes as well, is just get to know the students, let them, tell you their needs before you make any assumptions. And I always find it really interesting to hear their stories, especially as I talk to them about their research interests. You learn a lot about what they care about, what their struggles are, and you don't ever want to assume anything because they come from all different backgrounds, and you just don't know until you talk to someone what exactly their needs are. And then also, I think of the ADA compliance side of things. I really try to make sure that I'm well trained, to make sure that I am meeting the needs of students with all different types of needs. If that involves captions, creating different formats for videos. I always try to be really mindful of what I'm putting on the library website. And we have really great guidance from someone at our libraries that has helped with that. So that's the nice thing I think most people will find working in higher ed is there are so many opportunities for professional development that I really try to take advantage of and stay up to date on. And I know there's a new ADA standards are coming out soon. So those are things that we just need to constantly keep up with.
Thank you. Next question I have is, what aspects of our profession do you wish you could draw more attention to? Things that maybe future librarians or people earlier in their career might not know that since you've been here for a while, you'd like to call attention to. So we'll start with Haley.
I think one of my favorite parts that's maybe not like taught you in school is just the opportunities for professional development and learning things that you are interested in that may not be like directly connected to your subject or your specialty that you can like bring into your librarianship. I think for me, like I got my library degree and then I got a second master's in something else and I was able to incorporate it into my librarianship and I love, taking classes and continuing learning. And I feel really lucky because digital scholarship is a field that's like evolves constantly and you learn new things constantly and things like that. So it's very encouraged. So I think if you are someone who loves learning things and continuing to learn things, it's a great field because there's lots of opportunities for that.
Thank you. Tawanda.
I would also say something in line with Haley. There's a lot of inspiration, a lot of freedom to explore, lots of opportunities to try new things. So, and that's something that they don't really teach you in theory. These are not things you can learn, but eventually you find your knack in librarianship and you have a passion that ultimately develops for that. And then that's where you can thrive and grow.
Thank you. Kelsey?
I would say one thing is I think a lot of people come to librarianship thinking it's like a quiet job where you're just kind of like a lot of introverts are attracted to the job. I am an introvert myself, but it really is about connecting with people. I think most library jobs are, and even if it's not traditionally one where you might think you're working with the public all the time or front facing, you're serving the public and you're serving your community, whether it's at, in a college or university or a public library. So I think that's something that first going into the library fields, I might not have quite fully understood, but I really do enjoy. It's like my favorite part of my job is when I get to talk to students and learn about what they're passionate about and get to kind of launch their academic career and knowing, that they're going to be going into the workforce. And it's really quite inspiring and it's different every day. You get to talk to a lot of different people, especially as a generalist. I'm not a subject specialist, so I learn about all different research areas. Sometimes I have to point people to the subject librarians, but you're learning new things every day. So if you're someone who really likes to learn, I think librarianship is a great career.
Mary Jo.
I'm going to take this a little different direction. The skills that I wish I had learned more of when I was going to library school, or I wish I had taken more advantage of, really are on the technical side. I do wish more of our folks learn all you can about IT, databases, spreadsheets, whether or not you're going to use them. I truly do think that those kind of skills will take you a long way in terms of when you have to assess a program at the, if even if you're doing, a wonderful traditional library program for assessment, I think having those kind of skills and abilities can really be helpful. And I can't believe we've gone through this whole morning and nobody's talked about AI, which has been refreshing, but I just want everybody to recognize how that is going to be changing all of our skills, and whether you like it, embrace it or not, the idea that it's here and how it might be and is how those tools are absolutely being embedded in a lot of our library platforms, whether we know it or not, and so on, and how people are going to be finding out information, I think is just something that I would encourage every new librarian coming up the pike to be aware of and cognizant of, and keeping their skills up to date, sharpening your saw, making sure that you keep keep those your skill set up to date.
Thank you. Claire.
Yeah, I think I didn't realize when I was getting my master's just what kind of piggybacking on things that Kelsey and Tawanda said, like the freedom that you have to explore new things, to kind of make the job what you want it to be, follow your interests, follow your strengths. And also, librarians have a kind of a unique place on a college or university campus. Most of the faculty are specialists, whereas, as Kelsey said, librarians tend to be generalists. And we have, you know, a valuable place on a lot of like committees and places throughout the college, we know a little bit about a lot more things than many other people on that committee are going to know. And we probably know a lot more about how other parts of the campus work because we've had to walk a student over to wherever such and such is. And that, so we kind of, I feel like we have a special and really interesting position on a campus and in an institution that the places that I have worked has been really valued, which I just think is cool, like that our skills can translate to helping the institution as a whole do things.
Thank you. Now, Mary Jo, you brought up AI. I may have mentioned that I was going to ask an AI question this morning. Raise your hand if AI has impacted your librarianship. Just show hands.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to start with Kelsey. Kelsey, how has generative AI impacted how you do information literacy specifically?
Yeah, it has a huge impact. And I mean, it's one of those things where librarianship is always changing. We've always had to adapt to new technologies. That's just part of what we do. And I think the tenets of what we teach are the same. We're still trying to teach people to be critical in, their evaluation of information, to think critically about how they're using and sharing, creating information. So that hasn't really changed, but I think what's really tricky about this is that AI both presents like these easy shortcuts for people who might think, why do I need a librarian? I can just use ChatGPT, or I can just go to Perplexity and just type it in. It's going to do it for me. But on the other hand, AI is really creating a lot more challenges with misinformation and fake images and videos and hallucinations and citations that are not real. So it's kind of, as always, we have to really advocate for what we do and why we're still important. And I don't think librarians are at all obsolete at this point. I'm not worried about AI taking our jobs. And I find that students, when I'm offering research assistance, they still really appreciate the human element. And I'm on a co-op chat where often it gets pushed over from a chat bot, and people are usually very disgruntled. They don't want to talk to a robot. They just want to talk to a real person. And I think there's a lot to be said for someone who really cares about helping you and they really want to help you, reach your goal. ChatGPT doesn't care. They're just spewing information out based on predictions. So, I mean, there's so much we could talk about with AI, but I think the core things that I'm teaching are still the same. It's just the struggle of convincing people that they still need information literacy skills. That using the robot isn't going to work.
Yeah, I hear a lot from others in our profession that they hate AI, they want it to go away. But I think that as a profession, we need to embrace it because it's not going anywhere,
And there
right?
are advantages to it too. I'm not anti-AI, but I think it becomes trickier to teach people, not just to, take everything that ChatGPT says.
Yeah. Tawanda, from a circulation standpoint, is it affecting processes or anything like that in terms of access?
In terms of access, from a circulation perspective, maybe I would say electronic circulation, like in terms of maybe database access and and I know this is something that SUNY is still looking at in terms of how our databases are incorporating AI and the results that are populated. So in terms of physical content, no, but letting students be aware that we are not against AI, but knowing how AI works, because they just seems to think that it's something microwavable, that you just pop it in and it comes out. No, it's still some work that has to be done. So embracing that but yet communicating the message. But in terms of access, I think that's more of a electronic realm and that fuses more into that information literacy work.
Thank you. Claire, Mary Jo, or Haley, do you have anything to add on AI?
I can add. So I'm on a group for our library, and it's really interesting. It's just a general AI group, but like it's going to impact like very different ways, different kind of departments in the library. So I can't exactly speak to that exactly, but it's definitely discussions like, are we gonna have this as part of our catalog? Like, how are students gonna use it for databases? How are we gonna use this for metadata and cataloging? Specifically for digital scholarship, we tend to focus on trying to teach students how it's working. We have a lot of scholars who want to use it as part of their research. So like tools they can use, what's actually happening. Like we do a lot of like text analysis because that's like the human way of kind of understanding the beginnings of it. Like teaching tokenization and what is natural language processing and things like that. So we definitely come at it from like a literacy perspective and then like how to use these tools or this tool to help your research. Like, for example, I'm doing a workshop in the fall that's like how to use like AI, like ChatGPT, like these chatbots to help with like workflows for data visualization. Like what are your options? So yeah, we're we're trying but it moves so fast too, so staying on top of it as well is a project in its own. But yeah, we definitely are looked at a lot to understand what we should be doing in the library with it.
Right, Jar Claire?
One thing that I've kind of appreciated is now I have like an excuse to like get out my soapbox for why research is awesome and cool and worth doing. Which I can stand on that soapbox for a long time, but I don't often get asked to do so before. But now I feel like it's something like this is a case I need to make to particularly to like when we have like incoming freshman seminar students who this is their first semester on campus, they're getting their welcome to the library, like just making the case for why do it. Um, I, I like getting to get that soapbox out. So I'm glad that AI gave me that excuse, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with everything everyone said. I absolutely do think getting that message to our students, they are savvy consumers, but even so, the whole idea of misinformation and how many different ways that they truly do need to be critical thinking and embedding that into our information literacy and how we're approaching what we recognize as scholarship and research and good research. And so I would just say that part, the ethical part, I think there's so many emphasis that can be mentioned in terms of use of AI and students, but it absolutely is part of the platforms they're already building for us, whether we're in it or not.
Yep. So we're just about at time. So the last thing I like to ask is what advice, in about a sentence or two, would you give to future librarians or people looking to enter the field or are early in their careers? So Claire, we'll go right across the screen.
Um, Lean into being a generalist. I feel like the world needs more generalists. And also like when you are in your program, like I took a cataloging course and my whole goal was to just like vaguely sort of know how to read a catalog record. Like I wanted to get a B and get out. And my first two library jobs required me to do some original cataloging. So all of the things that you think you will not be doing or have no interest in doing, you may well be asked to do at some point. So you should give those your attention. Other duties as assigned is a very, very, very large net.
That it is. Mary Jo.
Oops. Again, I think I said it before, but stay curious. Learning never ends. It's both the blessing and the curse of librarianship. I don't think it's going to go away because there'll always be more to do, always be more to learn. Keep building your skill set. Stay up to date. Take advantage of every opportunity you have.
Thank you. Haley?
Yeah, to build off that, a practical way to do that is if you work at a university with a tuition benefit, definitely take advantage of that. Like I got both my masters paid for because of that. And I still take classes now just for fun, random, like, and things related to my job. So that's a really nice perk of academic librarianship and especially in the SUNY system, because you can then take a class at any of the schools, as long as they let you in. So definitely consider that.
Kelsey.
I would say get experience wherever you can, even if it's maybe a different kind of library or not exactly the job you want. Just being in a library setting can help you learn so much about how libraries work. And you make connections with people that can maybe write a reference or point you in the right direction if they see a job that looks good for you. A lot of times they're part-time, a lot of times they're in the evenings. There's a lot of some of my first academic library jobs were evening reference hours. A lot of times libraries are looking for just part-time people to fill in the late hours. And that's really good practice and it's really good experience to be able to put on your CV. So I would say anywhere, and I also worked in a public library for a little bit. So anywhere where you can just get your foot in the door, take advantage of that, even if you have to work a couple part-time jobs. I know a lot of people have full-time jobs, but it really helps you get on the radar when you're applying for jobs.
Thank you. And Tawanda.
I would say I would recommend always be a lifelong learner. We foster lifelong learning through our students, and sometimes we give so much that we forget about ourselves. Sorry, can you hear me now? Okay. I say we often give so much that we forget about ourselves, and even as a professional and personal, right? Just always having that balance. Um, we are in SUNYLA, so I would say stay with a professional organization to stay connected. Professional publications are also helpful, and know your purpose. What are you going to work for every day? What is your goal? What do you intend to do? So that would be my advice.
My sound went away. So hopefully everyone can still hear all of you, but for some reason I can't hear you. But that brings us to time. So thank you all again for joining us in this panel. And we'll stop recording now and get ready for the next panel on tech services and systems. So stick around. All right, we're live. So you can go ahead and this is now the third panel of today. Make sure people stick around for the breakout at noon. But this is our tech services panel, and Jess, it's all you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jess Spooner, and I am currently the interim director of library services at SUNY Canton. And I have been in the tech services field for almost 20 years now, so have little experience. I'm just going to go around and I'll just tell you to introduce yourselves when I say your name so we don't get confused. So I'm going to start with Jill.
Hi, I'm Jill Locascio, and I am the Systems and Digital and Technical Services Librarian at the SUNY College of Optometry. We're the smallest SUNY campus, and we're in Manhattan. I've been in libraries since I was 16 years old, so over 20 years now. And I pretty much do all of the back end library tech stuff here at SUNY Optometry. I've been at SUNY Optometry now for going on 13 years.
Hey, Maria.
Hi there. My name is
You're good.
Sorry, it flashed. I don't know. My name is Maria Planansky. I am the collection management librarian at Alfred University with New York College of Ceramics. So it's both a private university and a SUNY statutory college. I've been in my role for about 4 years, and as collection management librarian, I do tech services, e-resources, and then a nice hefty dose of reference and instruction as well. And so really varied. The big thing I do is a lot of budget work, truly. Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, can you hear me okay? Okay, cool. I'm Michelle Bowers. I'm the e-resources librarian at Upstate Medical University. That's in Syracuse. I've been here about 3 years. Been in libraries about 10 years total, kind of bouncing around a bit. Yeah, and a lot of my work here involves setting up and maintaining access to our databases, ebooks, journals, troubleshooting when things inevitably go wrong. I also do a lot of content work with our web presence, so our website and our LibGuides and store. Yeah, looking forward to being here.
Thank you. And Joan?
Hi, my name is Joan Cook. I'm the cataloger and electronic resources librarian at Suffolk County Community College. It's the largest community college in the SUNY system, and we're on Long Island. And I catalog print books, and I work with electronic databases. And I have two other colleagues down here in technical services. So I'm one of three that work here.
Thank you. Okay, so I have questions. I have two that were submitted by people coming into this conference for the first time this year. And they said, I bet it's a lot of data entry. Does the repetitive aspect get boring and do you get bored? Does anyone want to take that one?
I'll go.
Okay.
I would actually say the data entry is kind of like there's certainly some of it, but it's becoming less and less. And one of the cool things I've discovered in my growth as a systems librarian has been and not something I've discovered, but as I've progressed as a systems librarian, I've taken on new skills in the realm of coding and things like that, and working with APIs for some of our systems has reduced a lot of that manual data entry, where now I can kind of write a little script or adapt a script that someone else has written that gets that data where I want it to be. So that's something that's kind of neat.
Anyone else have anything on that question? Oh, Amanda can hear again now too.
I'll say I'm never bored. I look forward to coming to work every day. I think it's just enjoyable. You just never know what's going to come at you. I have like set jobs that I do. I do paper book cataloging. So I copy cataloging is some original. So that's always keeping me thinking. And down here in technical services, we also kind of troubleshoot for staff or they have questions. So you just never know. I mean, I come in here with something I want to do, and sometimes I don't do it because I've been pulled in a different direction. So I'm never bored.
John, I totally agree. Like even I work on a team as well, and they save the harder cataloging tasks for me sometimes. But I'm trying to think about it, and I certainly do some tedious work occasionally, like some detail work. But when it comes to straight up data entry, that's where like you put on a podcast and zone out. That's very rare for me. And it usually happens, if it does happen, it's like, oh, it's a summer project where we're just getting rid of like microfiche, and so we're doing all the stuff to it so it can be digitized and I'm supporting another team or something similar to that. I find that the detail and I would say like really concentrating work is actually very taxing, very taxing in a good way.
I would
Yeah, I'll
agree with
agree.
that.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
agree.
sorry, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I feel the same way. Yeah, never bored. I feel like this is probably the position I'm in now is probably the least amount of repetitive work of anything I've been in. And yeah, I am constantly learning new things, pushed out of the comfort zone. Sometimes not so happy about that, but yeah, I sometimes I wish it was a little bit more repetitive than it is. But good challenge.
Perfect, thank you. The next question that they had was, what advice do you have for aspiring catalogers, given that most library programs don't offer much, if any, coursework in cataloging and metadata? And I know I personally didn't have any of that when I did my master's at UB.
This is so upsetting to me. It was required in my program, but that's so upsetting to me. And that said, the people I work with who do cataloging more cataloging than I do not have MLISs, and they learned on the job. So there are so many really great webinars, Library Juice. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting the acronym, but like Midwest. It's out of Ohio.
Yeah.
Them. I'll think of it and put it in the chat. But it's really, really excellent. And while I had a wonderful professor, shout out to Karen Snow. Well, I had a wonderful professor who taught me cataloging basics. I learned on the job. And so it's just like getting in there and not being afraid and diving into copy cataloging and just looking at things and not being intimidated by the mark record and the 650s and all that kind of stuff. Like when I'm training someone on cataloging who has no experience or whatever, I show them a mark record and then I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Just focus on access and what do you need to find information? What do other people need to find information? So coupled with that, I would also suggest doing reference shifts. That's a big deal. I think it really informs a lot of my work.
Like running the reference desk?
Yeah, we do them. And when
Yeah.
my first job, I did cataloging. Um, as a grad student, and we all had to do this was like a military I mean it was like a museum military library in Chicago, and we all did, every single person, library staff, what have you, we all did reference shifts, and it was really integrated into our work, and that was a really big learning experience for me. Yeah.
Yeah, where I work, we only have right now myself, two librarians. We have a secretary and another support staff, and we all do the reference desk. We all do
Yeah.
2 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we're open 125 hours a week. So at night, the students have to take over our student work. We have LCAs, they're called, and they cover the reference desk at night.
That's great.
I agree with that as well. I mean, somebody had suggested that to me, and so I do work at the reference desk when I can, and it's taught me a lot about my job down here and access for students and how to help answer questions for staff too. So it's a really, to me, it's a really important side of what I do too. You see the library from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I was in library school, I took a cataloging course because it sounded cool to me. And then it was when the one the one cataloging course I was able to take, I thought it was really interesting. But then when I got a job, I pivoted and wasn't doing cataloging at all. And then when I got my current job where cataloging was one of the responsibilities, I was so rusty. So it was almost starting from scratch. And so I agree with what a lot of people have said about kind of learning on the job and not feeling intimidated to have to do so. Um, like copy cataloging is, it's doing copy cataloging is a fun way to learn how to copy catalog and then how to original catalog. And there are a lot of resources out there. There's so many resources for anyone learning anything about librarianship, but I find that for cataloging specifically, there are a lot of resources on the web that you can kind of just Google and find. So when I would run into a problem, generally in cataloging, that was one of the things that was easy to find solutions when I'd run into a roadblock in my work. And on top of that, I don't do really any reference at all, but I do a lot of e-resources troubleshooting and systems work. And those kind of non-cataloging activities that are related to cataloging, but you might not realize it, are really helpful because if someone has an issue with our discovery system, I'll be looking at the metadata of a search record. And the more you do that, the more you understand how all these systems tie in and work together. And that makes you a better cataloger. So on the one hand, the fact that a lot of us have to wear a lot of hats now can be a little stressful at times. You might not be able to devote the time you want to a specific area. It can be really helpful in that it helps kind of beef up your skills in all these other areas. So yeah, I don't do a lot of cataloging just because we don't do a lot of book orderings. And so a lot of the cataloging I do is just kind of real basic copy cataloging. I don't do a lot of original cataloging. And when I do have to do it, everything's all rusty again. But again, it's really easy to kind of uh, look at other records and see how things are supposed to be done. And also, I find that cataloging colleagues love to talk about cataloging. So you can always reach out to, I can reach out to anyone in the SUNY ecosystem or even beyond that and usually get the help I need.
Great, thank you. So what are some tips for keeping up with advancements in technology in the rapidly changing environment of technical services and systems?
I'll jump in and echo what Maria said in the chat that listservs are phenomenal for that. So many good ones out there. Um, so yeah, and it depends on kind of what area you think you want to go with. Like if you think that you're going to be in the SUNY system, the SUNYLA listserv's a great one. A lot of our libraries use Alma, so that listserv's pretty good too. Another one that I like, ALA Core, which I'm not terribly active with, but they have an e-forum, which is like over 2 days, there'll be just a whole bunch of messages coming in on a couple moderated chats. So that's great to just kind of see what's going on with other people.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to that one?
I'll say
sorry.
that being part of SUNY really offers a lot of opportunities to us for working with colleagues. And, we have a metadata interest group where we meet and talk about policies and things like that. We've updated policies since we've gone over, switched over from the old system. So there's lots of opportunities to learn from vendors and from our colleagues in SUNY.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add, because everything that everybody has named I've used, is I guess kind of like piggybacking on what Michelle said, there is a free week. Well, I mean, there's a week in March. It is free. And I think it's core. I think it's ALA core. It's the interest group. And it's just like dozens of incredibly niche, very technical focused webinars. And I've learned, that would be a full-time job to go to every single one, truly. But people bring so much, and I've learned so much in those. And same with SUNY Lab in winter, like it's free, it's open to everybody,
Great. What professional development opportunities would you recommend a new tech services librarian?
I think Maria was just talking about some of those, a lot of, seek out any free workshops, webinars, conferences. Again, plug for the SUNYLA Midwinter Conference, which I've been on the committee on for a while. That's a free conference SUNYLA does every year that's kind of on the more technical side of things. And again, this relates back to, joining listservs, because that's where people promote these things, these professional development opportunities. So just kind of keeping your eyes and ears open, seeing, these announcements that people have for different conferences and webinars that come up. Some vendors that your library might work with will often have free webinars that will, OCLC does a ton of, free webinars here and there to learn things. I work with PubMed. They have a lot of free webinars and things like that to learn from. So also conferences, if you're able to go to them. I know, some of these in-person ones are expensive, but I am luckily usually able to go to ER&L every year, which is Electronic Resources and Libraries Conference. I love that one. I learned so much. That has been invaluable for my professional development. So that's what I'd recommend. Also, Library Juice Academy, I think someone mentioned. Again, those aren't free courses, but I'd say they're definitely worth the money. I've taken a Python for Librarians course there that I've found really useful. So that's something else I would recommend. Oh, I'm sorry. I do want to add though, because some of the things I've mentioned cost money, keep your eye out. There are often grants, professional development grants, especially for new librarians. I know SUNY Law offers some. So yeah, if you do want to take advantage of professional development opportunities, but you or the library you work at doesn't have the funding to, keep your eyes and ears open for different professional development grants.
Mhm. Yeah, I would agree with all of that. And again, the listservs we've talked about are a great way to kind of see when those announcements come out, so you can see which conferences are when. And a lot of state organizations too will do free ones, usually free or very low cost. So yeah, great way to just kind of follow what's going on.
This isn't, I mean, it is library specific, but I want to really call out something that I took while in school, in case anyone is still choosing courses and things like that, is I took a database class, learning SQL and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't really sure if I would use it or not. And it turns out I use it all the time because for e-resources, we do like usage statistics, or people want to pull and figure out they basically want to like look at the collection, the library collection behind the collection. And I use those database SQL skills all the time, trying to get information to the people I work with, to convey stuff about money or interest. So that, and then also, if you're not familiar with budgeting, I don't know how much everybody else uses it, like has to do budget type stuff. I'm sure to some extent everybody. I do a lot of that kind of thing with the person who is in charge of all the libraries at Alfred. And so anything related to budgeting or accounting or whatever, even just a little bit of exposure, I think can be helpful, because when I've had conversations with other people in the library, on campus in general, people often are not comfortable with their ability to process financial information quickly when they're in a meeting or in a conversation. And that can be a really powerful thing that you bring to the table, or just also in your personal life.
What are day-to-day functions of your library's tech services department, and how do you explain these functions to people who may not have knowledge of them?
I'll go. I'll go. I'll go. Sorry, you want to go, Jill? Okay. So there's three of us down here in technical services at Suffolk, and I'm the cataloger and electronic resources librarian. We have an acquisitions librarian and we have a systems librarian. So we also have two aides that work down here. So the acquisitions librarian orders books, whether it be electronic or print, and then we have to we enter those orders. We don't do ours through Alma. We're working with Alma. All of SUNY does, but we do enter the orders in so we can get reports back. So we have our clerks here who put our orders in for us. They get the records from OCLC. So when we have orders coming in, we do that. A lot of times those books will come in a box. We have to unpack them and get them processed. I'll catalog them, make sure that the records are right, make sure they're going on the right part of the shelf. And we get them labeled and we ship them out. We have 3 libraries here at Suffolk. So we are central and we serve all 3 libraries. So we also process, or it's a lot less. We have digital periodicals and print now, a lot less print, but those have to be processed as well, the print ones. So there's always something going on here. There's always cleanup of the catalog, and there's some withdrawals and things like that that have to be done and processed. So there's plenty to do down here. And we have a system to do it. And we also have instructions that I've provided for people, especially because now we've been with Alma for a couple of years, but sometimes staff turns over and we have to train them on how to do things. So I work with the upstairs staff too about training and how to best practices for things and providing resources for them.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much a technical services department of one. Again, we're really small here. And so I guess for me, how that looks is there's kind of like, I guess I would call it like a hierarchy of like library tech needs, and that begins with like, does everything work? So when I get to the office, is everything working today? And then if there's some type of outage, then that's the most urgent need to triage that and deal with that. And then there are the kind of weekly, monthly, annual responsibilities, depending on the time of year. Again, since we're small, I'll order books as needed, but there'll be like maybe like 1 or 2 book orders a year. So I deal with, I put more energy towards that, when that comes, and then that comes along with cataloging. If it's, a time of the year where I need to be pulling statistics, then more energy goes into that. And then I have my bigger projects that are kind of omnipresent, that either take the main stage or get pushed back a little depending on other necessities. And usually those projects involved kind of either improving systems and services that currently exist. There's a way I order books. Maybe there's like some type of script I can do to make it easier. Same thing with monitoring e-resources. It's kind of where things get fun and creative for me in my job, where I can kind of figure out ways to make our systems better or our processes quicker and more efficient. And then there's also projects related to I'm a tenured librarian, and so with presenting and publishing, there'll be kind of projects more related to that kind of stuff, more research related stuff that I'll work on. Again, when the day-to-day needs are met. So yeah, there's kind of a rhythm that you fall into, or that I fall into, especially as uh, a solo tech person.
Okay, the next question, are you required to research or publish?
Yep. I am. I'm in a tenure track faculty librarian role. So yes, my role is, but not everyone has to.
What would make the difference for you at your school?
Well, there are administrative librarians, and so that's our dean and our director, which are hired for 12 months of the year and are considered not faculty. That said, one of them opted in to the tenure process. She just got tenure. Good for her. Yeah. But those are not tenure track roles. Often, if it's an internal hire, though, they will have earned tenure. But I do know at other SUNY campuses, you don't always have to do that. And plenty of places are not on the publishing train.
And I will say that our kind of tenure requirements, as far as publishing and things like that, are really flexible, especially for me as a tech services librarian. So if I share some code, that counts. I'm our lib answers, libguides administrator. I create a lot of how-tos on our LibGuides. Those count. So it's not just traditional academic, kind of peer research publications. At my institution, it really varies where you are. Like there's such variation. So luckily for the type of work I do, the requirements easily mesh with what I do. Also, work that I do, projects that I take on that help our faculty in their publishing and their scholarship and teaching stuff, that also counts. So luckily it's easier for myself. It's been to kind of shoehorn the type of work that I do into those tenure requirements. I know other places are more rigid.
Yes. It's interesting. I think when you look at, I know they're doing a reclassification, right, of research, and that might have just happened. But I still think of universities and colleges as like R1, like top tier, like super intensive, like Division 1 athletics only for research. And so I am not at that university. I'm not at an R1 university. And so were I to be at one, I think like I could do a presentation at SUNYLA, and that would be like, whoa, Awesome, great. And that would also be awesome, great at an R1, but you would also probably need to do a lot of other stuff with that. But it is super institution dependent. And if you are interested in this, awesome. Um, when you interview, just ask tons and tons of questions about it because one of the most really great things that made me want to work where I work now is I met with the provost as part of the interview process. And what she said to me was like, if someone at this institution doesn't get tenure, it's not a failure. It's a failure of the institution because they didn't support you accurately. They didn't give you what you needed in order to thrive. And so figuring out that's not every institution. There's a lot of other places that out there that I would not thrive at. So figuring out which version matches best for you is key. Because some people really like publishing, like really like doing peer-reviewed work. Like one of my colleagues loves it. And that's great for him. And I do it sometimes.
Yeah, I'll agree. Asking those questions at the start is huge, and it can tell you a ton. I also find where I am, it's kind of like Jill said, where it's depending on your position, the requirements, you still have to meet the same requirements, but there may be a little more flex to it. And for us, it's tied into service to the profession, service to the institution. So if you're if you're in a role like mine where you're not out there teaching a whole lot, the tenure committee will know that, and you can kind of balance that with more involvement in those other areas. So there's yeah, just talking to the people who manage that is huge for just knowing how to best position yourself in there. And a lot of institutions, I do think they're really supportive.
Yeah, it's the same here. I'm not required to publish, but there's so much to be involved in all the different aspects of, you know, being a librarian. So there's plenty to get involved in, which goes towards tenure and promotion.
Can I ask you guys if you've made full librarian without the publishing aspect?
I made full librarian last year. I have published, but not that much. I have like two peer-reviewed publications, so you know that was enough at my institution.
Okay.
A ton of presentations, so.
Anybody else make full librarian yet?
No, I'm still in it.
Yeah, same.
I'm tenured. I earned that after a couple of years, after 5 years.
Okay. What is one of the most scariest issue? It says most difficult, scariest issues that you've had to fix.
Well, I won't even touch COVID, right? I'm gonna put that to the side. But just money. Like FAFSA last year, I don't know how other people experienced it on your campus, but from a tech services like acquisition perspective, that really affected our budget at Alfred. And so things that we were planning to do, we couldn't do. And it was one of those things where we weren't sure what. Oh, so for those of you who aren't, I'll give a little bit more context. FAFSA last year, you guys are in school, so you probably know, was super messed up and it was super late, and people didn't get incoming students didn't get the information they needed, and a lot of people opted out of attending university, and it affected a lot of places that are reliant on financial aid from that's done by the federal government. And for us at Alfred, it was just like this time of complete unknown where we had a budget approved for our fiscal year and contracts that would, come into effect. But it became this weird holding pattern of like, okay, what does this mean? Can we go ahead with this? Do we need to renegotiate? Do we need to delay? It was challenging. So those kind of financial issues are scary because they're really out of your control. And they're not over at all. I say that as I end laughingly, but it's like not great.
I can answer from a totally different angle. A real scary thing that happened once that I hope doesn't happen again. It was one of our major, probably most accessed platforms. There was some type of tech issue where people couldn't access that content off campus. And it happened to take place while I was at a conference. And whenever I'm at a conference, knowing that I'm kind of the go-to, the solo one in charge of that stuff, I never just totally, check out. I'm always keeping my eye on my emails just to make sure nothing terrible happens. But in this case, something terrible happened. So, at that conference, there was a lot of high stress emailing between myself and not just the vendor, but then our uh, college IT department. And that adds a different dimension of complexity because there's a lot of as a kind of technical librarian, there's a lot of, I guess, like translating you have to do where, you have to speak user and then you have to speak IT if you have, a kind of more tech specific university IT department. Then you have to speak vendor. And so having it be, an issue with our proxy server that's dealt with by our IT department, and then people are coming to me and not really knowing how to explain their issues to me, and I'm trying to ingest and synthesize all these issues and then communicate to everyone effectively and, triage the issue and, placate everyone. Uh, that was really stressful. It's scary when something that people depend on stops working. It's stressful for everyone involved. But I will say, uh, one of my first, months on the job, I can be a little bit of a nervous person, and I had a coworker tell me, "We're not doing surgery. Like, no one is gonna die. Like, just calm down. We're not doing surgery." So, and I always go back to that, and that was helpful to me, where sometimes mistakes happen. Once, someone made a mistake and accidentally like wiped out a bunch of our holdings on our like main electronic holdings platform. We were able to, fix it. It's really scary at first, and it can, sometimes you have to do a lot of work to fix whatever's broken, but, just pause, take a breath, um, and, things will be okay. And I just think, even though I'm not front facing at all, I'm in my little cave all day, you still have to be a good communicator, especially as a librarian, because it's so interdisciplinary and it just touches so many different areas. So.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question, then I'm going to see if anyone else has additional questions in the chat. I've seen a few, but I think they've been answered. But if you don't feel your question's answered, put it back in the chat. And my last one I'm going to ask is, how do you feel about the future of the industry?
I think it's like, oh, I'm sorry, Joan, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just have to pause my screen for a second, but I'll still be here, but just go ahead and answer.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Joan, go ahead.
All right. I think it's a little bit scary. I mean, everything's always threatening and seems like anyway nowadays, financially, as has been said before. And they talk about AI but I really, as was mentioned in an earlier segment, I think that we do need librarians. We do need people to go through the information, with human hands. Just from a cataloging perspective, if you look at records for ebooks and things like that, they're really not good. So it's nice to have hands-on and your eyes looking at things but I think there's always something else that's going to be done that's needed, doing reports and things like that, and communicating with, staff and administration. I think you're always going to need somebody to interfere with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the need for help, and not even helping, but just the need for critical thinking in general, for the population, I think is only going to get stronger. And just having the ability to help people evaluate and vet things thoroughly and do the hard work of making sure that information's right in the first place. Yeah, that need's only going to get stronger. I think the hardest thing for me personally is that rate of change, just like everything else, is just anything tech, the rate at which it keeps advancing is just going to keep doing one of those. So I think it's just going to be harder to stay on top of it, but I think there's no shortage of ways to keep up with that information. So that's a good thing. It's just gonna mean staying on our toes. I think.
Anybody else want to add to that? I know it's a scary question, I think. I know at our campus, they love the library and our president loves the library. So it's a great place to be, but I know it's not everywhere like that.
Yeah, I think industry-wide, I wonder if I'm a little insulated in a good way, both being I like where I work. And I also really like that being part of SUNY because the libraries are so valued. And the scary things, I think AI and kind of it running amok is scary in that it exacerbates so many existing problems with information literacy and media literacy and source evaluation and things like that. But I don't think they're new problems. And I do think that the library, like libraries in general, especially academic libraries, are really uniquely equipped to help people deal with information coming at them at different ways. And so ideally, I don't think that the academic library industry is threatened at all. That said, um, like we all the people are and like administration have to buy into that worldview. Um, and that can be tricky depending on what working environment you have. And so um, I'm just thinking about like advocacy and sort of understanding like just sort of like almost like the talking points about like why libraries are relevant right now. Like I think they're extremely relevant. At the same time, there might be a push for other industries to make libraries irrelevant. And so just like diving in and believing, not necessarily like blindly, but making sure that you know the case for yourself and the place where you work knows the case for why libraries are so relevant is important. It's kind of rambly, I realize. I'm processing as I think.
Does anybody else here have any more questions for the librarians? Do you guys have anything else you want to share before we go?
I'll just say that, the type of technical services and system stuff I do, I find it extremely stimulating and ultimately rewarding. So if this is, an area you're interested in, I say, pursue it. I didn't realize I'd get into this type of librarianship. I thought I'd be a reference librarian. I kind of fell into it and I could not be happier. So.
We have a question, and she did ask me this earlier. Do all tenure tracks require research publications? What about additional degrees after the master's degree?
Yeah.
For us for promotion, yeah, we do need additional credits and full professor. You do need your second master's degree, and you do need educational requirements. Yes.
We at my institution, the second master's is not required, but when I started working at SUNY, I went ahead and got it anyway, just to be safe, because through, working at SUNY, I was able to do that for pretty much free. So that's something that's great about SUNY.
So a second master's isn't required on my campus. Like it's not, there's no expectation to do that. People I think some people have been interested in doing that, but really just like for personal gratification, not for a job requirement. Publication though, it can look a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be peer reviewed, but I would assume any tenure track, like there's a lot of flexibility, but you're probably gonna have to publish something. You're gonna have to have a byline. I would make that assumption.
Yeah, I would agree with that about the publishing. It's, the form will change a little bit, but yeah, as far as second masters, I'm not required to. To my knowledge, nobody else in the library, if they have one, it hasn't come up. I do know that there's sort of more of a push for other forms of continuing education. So like if we're in a medical library, so a lot of our people go on to get AHIP, which is a medical library specialization. So I feel like as long as you're doing that form of continuing education, at least here, that's valued at least as much, if not more, than second masters, but it varies widely everywhere.
Okay, I think that's all of our questions and everyone shared. So I think the next thing we're going to have to do is the breakout lunch session.
Yes. Thanks, everyone. So this is our last panel. Definitely stick around for breakout lunch at noon. This room will remain for public services, and then I'll create channels for the other two for people to slot themselves in. But we have about a little more than 15 minutes if people want to go get their lunches, bathroom breaks, all of that. So we'll see you in a little bit.